Now, the biggest question of all, we got to ask, what's your background in lacrosse and where did your love for the game start?
Well, I'm from a town called New Canaan, Connecticut, where the sport, lacrosse is probably the most popular sport in the town. So, I've grown up playing since first grade, and I've always loved it. It's always been my favorite sport. I was kind of, I don't play in college now. I stopped in high school. I was your typical high school hero kind of lacrosse player, but I've just kept my love for the game. I kept watching it, and then when I joined Barstool, it was just something I wanted to write about and try to hopefully give something lacrosse fans would enjoy, and also maybe try to expand the sport to a new audience.
Well, I know your brother has made a couple appearances right here on LSN. He's quite the player himself.
Yeah, he's a lot better than I was, that's for sure. I'm one of four brothers, and pretty much all of them were really good at lacrosse except me. I was more suited to blog about it. But yeah, no, he plays on the New Canaan Rams, and they're so far undefeated, having a great season. Ranked number 3 in one poll I saw the other day in the country. So for those of us who are Connecticut lacrosse fans, to see New Canaan and Darien be in the top 10 at the same time is very exciting.
Now, we love seeing lacrosse on Barstool. How have you seen the coverage of lacrosse grow in the media in the past few years?
I think it's unquestionably grown, and more than just the actual growth of it in terms of amount, I think the improvement in terms of production value has been incredible. I mean, if you watch the games that they do on ESPNU now, they always did a really good job with them. But I think even this year, especially, it seems to be like a really, really high level of production. Lacrosse Magazine is continuing to do their thing. I think at Inside Lacrosse, the guys with Terry Foy leading the charge have been doing an excellent job of covering the sport. I think Quint Kesnick has really come into his own, not only as a broadcaster, but as a writer. And then you have, people like you guys and like me on the internet. College Cross, the SB Nation site, does a really good job of keeping people updated on the goings-on of the sport. And I think all around, so it's not only been the proliferation of outlets that have actually covered the sport, but I think it's also the marked improvement of the quality of those outlets too.
Yeah, I got to give Joe Keegan a shout out for all the shot charts and the analytics study. Doing next level stuff, but certainly exciting about the growth. And most recently in your article, you wrote a little bit about Dom Starsia and how he hasn't won a regular season ACC game for a couple of seasons. Now, you said you weren't saying anything, but it sort of seemed like you were saying something.
It was one of the, I was trying to definitely toe a line between how much I could say. I mean, obviously you don't want to, the kind of joke there was that I was kind of suggesting that you would start thinking about Dom Starsia getting fired. I'm not going to be the one to say Dom Starsia deserves to be fired. I mean, he's the winningest coach of all time in terms of win totals. He's, a legend of the sport, multiple national championships. So I'm not going to be the one to sit here and tell you that Dom Starsia doesn't deserve to be the coach of the University of Virginia. But there's been a marked decline in the quality of lacrosse. Not just statistically. I mean, I threw out the stat. I think it's something like March of 2014 was his last regular season win against an ACC team. He's going to have one postseason win in the last 3 years. And when you just watch them, it does not look like the University of Virginia teams we've come accustomed to. I mean, when you think of UVA, you think of super disciplined offenses and defenses. The way Steele Stanwyck would quarterback those offenses for as many years as he did. You thought about when you thought of how the game was generally played, the correct way to play lacrosse, you would really point to Dom Starsia, University of Virginia teams. And we don't see that anymore. I mean, when you watch them play, it's not that the quality of athletes seems to have declined, but it just seems that the quality of play isn't anywhere close to where it's supposed to be. They look like, kind of chickens with their heads cut off running around out there half the time now. So it's kind of interesting. I'm not sure what's going on in that program, but, the facts are the facts that it does not. I mean, Dom Starsia deserves time to sort it out, but all things considered, the University of Virginia is the best college coaching destination in all of college lacrosse when you take into effect the history that they have, the resources they have, the weather. I would put it definitely number one as the most attractive job for any up and coming coach to want to have. So it's interesting. It's something to keep an eye on. I don't think it's a story yet, but I think one more bad season, it'll become a story very, very soon.
Well, let's just say in the hypothetical of all hypotheticals that Starsia does get the boot. I mean, who would you like to see in terms of an up and coming coach that would fit well there in Charlottesville?
I mean, take your pick. I think they could pretty much have anyone that they'd want. It's even hard to come up. It all depends on what their values are. I mean, it matters. Princeton is going through something similar right now, where you see a lot of the alumni base. There's this sense that they want one of their own, and they want a Princeton alumni to lead and bring the program to what it once was. Is Virginia going to be the type of place that cares about something like that, or are they simply going to want to get best coach available? I mean, one really kind of far out there who has had success leading a big time program, because sometimes the jump from doing really well at a mid-major to being a national championship contender doesn't always work, would be like Mike Pressler at Bryant. I mean, obviously he left Duke under the circumstances that he left Duke under. I think he's done a really good job at Bryant. Would he want another shot at coaching an ACC program? Or would they want to have somebody more younger and dynamic who's going to be there for a while? So I'm not quite sure who they would look for, because it would depend upon their values of the program, if they want to win right away and become a national championship contender overnight, or if they want more of like a younger type coach who they could have for a while.
Now, you said that Brown could win a national championship, but you wouldn't put money on him. I want to know which team or teams you actually would put money on to win the national championship.
Well, this probably sounds kind of like kind of an obvious take here, but for me, it's been Denver and Notre Dame. It's been them in the preseason, and I've seen nothing from them that's changed my mind. The thing about Notre Dame is I feel a lot of people are writing them off because they've played every game. I think their last like 4 games, or 4 of their last 5 have been 1-goal games. Since they've been playing so many people close, people have been, it's not really the dominating performances that you expect to see from somebody who's about to win a national championship. But I disagree with that. I think that the way that Notre Dame plays is they're incredibly patient on offense. They're not necessarily going to force the issue or want to engage you in an up and down game the way that, some teams predicated on their athleticism are going to try to. And their defense is going to, they're going to give you only a certain amount. And they're not going to be that defense that's going to, send a lot of traps and be super aggressive trying to cause turnovers. You can tell that the philosophy of the Notre Dame defense is their first priority isn't to cause a turnover, it's to not have the other team score, which sounds kind of almost dumb, but is a very important distinction. And when you play that kind of passive style, you're not going to be the kind of, it's not the kind of style that lends itself well to blowing teams out, but I think it's the kind of style that perfectly lends itself to tournament play. So I still have them as my number 1 contender. And then obviously Denver. I mean, what we saw last year from them in the postseason is incredible. And their freshman class has been performing absolutely outstanding to add even more firepower to them. Obviously, it's never wise to bet against Bill Tierney, the best college lacrosse coach of all time. So for me, it's still those 2 teams. And I think that I think that's actually what lacrosse fans want to see in the national championship. We saw them on ESPNU play that overtime game. It was the best game of the year. And I think lacrosse fans want to have been wanting to see that matchup again.